Wow, I just finished a deep dive into how Jeffrey Epstein became so wealthy, and what I found is very surprising. I'm gonna save you some time, break down everything I learned into a short video. And in general, how does a guy who grew up in a working class New York family, the son of a groundskeeper, become a guy who has a net worth over $600 million by the time of his death? I've seen some comments in my other Epstein videos suggesting that he was bankrolled by the Israeli government. I want to look into that, as well as ties to secret intelligence agencies in Israel, the United States, Russia, and more. I'm keeping my mind open and analytical to all these conspiracy theories. So we're starting in New York. Jeffrey Epstein is not wealthy, but he does manage to get accepted to NYU. However, he drops out. And here's the first confusing plot twist in Jeffrey Epstein's life, because he's actually managed to be hired as a math teacher at the Dalton School, one of the most elite private schools for New York high schoolers. At first, I thought, don't you need teaching credentials to be a teacher? But not at a private school. Only at public schools do you actually need to be a credentialed teacher. Additionally, Dalton's headmaster at the time, Donald Barr, is into making unconventional hires, especially for younger people in their 20s. He cares more about their charisma and natural intelligence than their actual credentials. But here's where it gets interesting. Donald Barr was a former OSS member, meaning he was in the Office of Strategic Services during World War II, which coordinated espionage and spies. Donald Barr actually resigns in 1974 because Vietnam War protests, and he's very conservative, whereas Jeffrey Epstein gets hired in 1974 to teach in that fall. So already young Jeffrey Epstein has some potential crossover into a guy who is connected to US spies, potentially. So young Jeffrey Epstein is teaching some of the wealthiest kids in the country, including tutoring the kids of Ace Greenberg, the CEO of Bear Stearns, one of the biggest private investment groups in the world in Wall Street. Epstein is apparently fired for being a bad teacher, but he impresses Greenberg enough to be hired as an analyst at Bear Stearns. You've maybe heard of Bear Stearns because it was the first private investment bank to fall during the 2008 financial crisis, had way too many subprime mortgages, basically ran out of money when everyone went trying to get their funds back, and the government essentially bailed it out by giving $13 billion to Chase Bank to acquire it. Jeffrey Epstein rises the ranks very quickly at Bear Stearns. From 1976 to 1980, he goes from the lowest level up to being a limited partner. We're now talking about a guy who has a $1 million or so salary, even likely back in the 70s and 80s, and now has a net worth likely in the low millions. But Epstein's big break comes when he meets Leslie Wexner. That is the founder of Victoria's Secret, a billionaire in the 80s, and now Jeffrey Epstein is his primary financial wealth manager, managing billions of dollars in assets. Epstein gets full power of attorney in 1991, and between 1991 and 2007, he earns over $200 million from Wexner. In the mid-90s, Jeffrey Epstein moves to the US Virgin Islands and becomes an expert in tax havens and estate planning. It's estimated that Epstein himself saved over $300 million in taxes because of his US Virgin Islands residence. But let's get back to Wexner and Israel. Wexner has a foundation that does like to donate funds to Israel and North American Jewish communities. Jeffrey Epstein works with the foundation until 2007, when he has a big breakup with Leslie Wexner, who claims that he has stolen $47 million plus from him. Keep in mind that 2008 is the first time that Jeffrey Epstein is convicted as a felon and pedophile. Even after this conviction, starts working with another mega billionaire, Leon Black, in 2011. Gets about $170 million in fees from him. I'll break down my verdict in Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine's father, in part 2.